Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So this is a little bit of a story. As you can see by the title, this is something that I thought was a little bit quirky and a little bit different about me and my life. So I decided, why not make it a video? Why not make it the first video on this channel? Because yeah, I think it is one of those individualistic experiences that I learned a lot from. It's definitely a bit of a punch in the face, and yeah, if I find myself in the same situation in the future, which, I mean, positives and negatives, but yeah, hopefully I can say that I've learned from my mistakes. So I'm going to be looking at screenshots that I took back in the day. I bet you're wondering, Cameron, how did you make $40,000? And not only did I make $40,000, but I made $40,000 without a job for an entire year. So I had minimal in savings, I had pretty much no money to my name, and if you want me to paint a picture, it's the beginning of 2017, about February. I don't have any screenshots, so I'm not sure exactly when it happened, but as I'm sure most of you were going to get into later in the year, I was reminded about Bitcoin. And yeah, a lot of you are going to go, oh, this is one of those stories, but yeah, stick around because it does take a little bit of a funny turn, and I just want to go through a little bit about my thought processes through this whole thing. So, I graduated high school in 2016, and pretty much what happened from there was that I thought that I was going to either go on a gap year or I was going to go straight into university. I decided to do neither of those things, and I decided to sit around and give having a startup a crack. So instead of getting a job like a normal person, I had a little bit of money in savings and I decided to put it into a business. So I had $5,000 in savings after putting up the website, and maybe a little bit more because I had to survive. But pretty much what I did was I took all of that and slowly, bit by bit, I put it into, quite literally bit by bit, I put it into Bitcoin. So it started out with 500. I put in 500 bucks and it shot up to 600 bucks within 3 days. So I thought, yeah, wow, this thing's really gonna take off. This is really gonna go really, really well. It's just the beginning of this. It's going to go so much more, and I've just checked the dates on my phone, and it looks like it was selling for around about 1,200. When I first found out about Bitcoin, it was 400, but I didn't buy any of it until a year later, probably a little bit over a year later, was when I actually bought my first Bitcoin. And I had to go down to the newspaper place, the seller, the place, News Corp, I think it is, and I had to draw like $1,000, $2,000 in cash, give them the cash, and then get a notification on my phone saying, congratulations, you bought 1 Bitcoin. And I was like, oh, well, that's not really a lot. I don't really understand too much about this, but beginner's luck, it started to work. And pretty much what started out as me having like 0.5 Bitcoins that I bought for maybe 700 bucks turned into 1,000 bucks. And then I put more money in, and I put more, and I put more. And as I said, I had about $5,000 in savings, and it ended up that in probably about 6 months, over the course of 6 months, it was going like this. And every time it went down, I heard everyone screaming buy at the bottom. And pretty much that's what I did. So I took all my money down to like $1,000. Luckily, I was still living with my parents because, you know, it was my first year out of high school and I had no idea what I was going to do. So what happened then was that I ended up getting about 1.5 Bitcoins. And you might be doing the math in your head and realizing, Cameron, 4,000 Bitcoins, when you said that it was about $1,500 a Bitcoin, you should have had more than that. Yes, I should have. But pretty much what happened was that I was taking those coins, and to justify not having a full-time job or going to university or going on a gap year or doing any of that stuff, what I did instead was I spent my time speculating and day trading. And more or less what happened was that I made money, but I didn't make as much money as I thought I was making, because looking back on it, 1.4 Bitcoin at the peak, I actually would have had more security in that. Then I think at one point I had about 25 altcoins, and pretty much that was part of the reason why I got so much more, was that one of those coins called Cobinhood on January 8th, which is when I'll put the screenshot there, I had just over $20,000 worth of just one coin that I believe I bought about $500 worth. And the very scientific reason why I bought that coin was that it sounded like Robinhood. And I knew Robinhood is an American company, that they've done very well. So I assumed, I didn't look it up, but I assumed that they were the ones behind it. So I bought $500 without researching. But anyway, pretty much what happened was I ran into one of the people that I really looked up to in like the entrepreneur space. And I ended up going to work for him, but that's a story for a different time. Pretty much the point was that I shut down the business because it wasn't a business. It was just me walking around saying that I was an entrepreneur, and having this idea that without looking back on it, without millions of dollars in funding, just would not have been possible. But pretty much what I did was I went from October that year, which I knew that I had taken about $4,000 and turned it into about $10,000. And then I got offered the job, which I was starting in January, and I was looking at my phone, and I'll stand over here and put the screenshots up. Every day it was just going up some days it was going up kind of $2,000 in a day. And at that point I was working, and I was working for, a reasonable entry-level salary, and I was making more a day off of cryptocurrency than I was in an entire fortnight at work. And that's not the work's fault. That's just, I got extremely lucky, and it affected me, because you hear about, especially when you're in that space, you hear about all these, and you've heard of them as well, all of these teenage millionaires, all these kids that are 17, 18, to like 22, and they've made millions of dollars. Especially, I think his name's Eric Finman. He's a Bitcoin millionaire. Because he bought in back when it was like $2 and he put in $1,000. So when you're looking at all of those stories and you're kind of justifying to yourself, and everyone's kind of saying to you like, oh, Cameron, like I know that you were posting about Bitcoin back in like March and back in like April when it was like $2,000 a coin, and now it's like $20,000 a coin. This is Australian dollars, by the way. And you get an ego, and I got a huge ego. I was a matter of, okay, cool. I'm never gonna have to work a day in my life. I knew I got lucky, but I convinced myself that a small percentage of that wasn't actually luck, and it was my genius that had put that all together. And I was the reason why I now had over $40,000 in cryptocurrency. And I knew that I could take that out, but here's where kind of the lesson starts to play. And any one of you that know the story of cryptocurrency and know the story of Bitcoin up until this point, you know where this is going to go. But let me tell you that, and let me tell you the lessons that I learned. I was in Hervey Bay, which for those of you that don't live in Australia, it's in kind of the central area of Queensland on the coast. And I was talking to my girlfriend's father, and he was telling me how he really wants to get involved. All of his mates at work are talking about it, and he really wants to kind of take his savings and he wants to put them into cryptocurrency. And that was the first time that I thought about it, because it wasn't my money, but it was someone that I'm close to saying, okay, it's worked out this far. And pretty much what happened was, I remember that day so specifically because that was when I looked at my phone, and I don't have a screenshot of it because I assumed it was going to keep on going up, but I had $46,000 in cryptocurrency. And I had made that over the last year without working a single day. And to give you an idea, I had about $1,000 in my bank account, maybe $2,000 in my bank account. And I was looking into Rolexes, I was looking into gold. I knew that I should start looking at taking the money out, but the greed in me, and this is the lesson, and this is what I hope you can take away from the story, is that I looked at it and I said, but what if it keeps going up? If it's gone this far, even if it drops 50%, I'll still have $22,000, $23,000. So the downside isn't that bad. But on the other hand, everyone seems to be so stoked on this. Everyone seems to be so excited about this. Everyone seems to be coming to me as if I'm this 18-year-old guru talking about cryptocurrency. I got a bit of an airhead, and I had a full-time job at that point. So this is probably February 2018 now, maybe March 2018, where it was starting to go down, and I knew that it was going down. But I looked at it and I was like, well, I have a full-time job. So even if I lose 50% of that money, I'm going to start looking at apartments. And when I find the right apartment, that just shows you kind of how loopy I was, okay, when I find the right apartment to buy, I'm probably going to have 50 to 100K, and I'll be able to take out a portion of it, and I'll be able to put it back in. I got this method off of Warren Buffett, where I believe it's just called the Warren Buffett method, where you invest a principal and then it goes up. And then you take the principal out, and then you're left with just the profits. So even if you lose 100% of that money, it's money that wasn't yours in the first place. So in theory, you didn't lose anything. You lost potential money because you didn't take it out, but you didn't lose the principal. So you can take the principal and you can put it into something else. My principal was only about $3,000, $4,000. So if I had taken it out at the peak, which obviously you can't time it, but I would have taken out about $42,000, which is close to some people's annual salaries. And that was the main reason why I didn't, was that principle didn't make sense to me anymore because I had made so much more than that. So if I took it out and I put it into something else, I was like, what is going to perform better than Bitcoin and all these other currencies? And so I didn't. And so I think March, April, May have come around and I sold the principal. So I took out about $5,000, $6,000 because I needed the money. And that was pretty much it. I hung on to it. I still hold on to some of it, just out of speculation's sake, although it's not in the thousands at all. It's nowhere near that. It's nowhere over 20,000 or 30, 40,000. But here's the lesson that I learned, and that is the value and the security of your savings. Now, I'm pretty young. You can see that. So when I'm giving this advice, I'm mostly speaking to the young people out there. And that is that when you're investing, you may want to go for a get-rich-quick scheme. So Bitcoin and courses and drop shipping and social media marketing and that sort of stuff does have that get-rich-quick. You look at every Alex Becker commercial. This guy made $100,000 in his first week drop shipping. And I can show you how to do it as well. Which in reality, it doesn't work like that. Obviously, you know that. Otherwise, everyone would do it. Yes, in very rare cases, kind of like me, I could have made a course how I made $40,000 in Bitcoin at 18, misled a bunch of people. But that's the case, is that sometimes people get lucky. But my point being is that start looking into S&P 500. Start looking into compound interest. Start looking into credit card points and savings and investing strategically. That's what I'm doing right now, is that I'm taking my whole investment strategy and a small portion of it is still going towards super risky investments. But the large portion of it is, okay, 10, 20, 30 years from now, if I keep this up and I increase it with my earnings, I'm going to have 99% certainly, I'm going to have built something over time. And I read a statistic the other day, which was $1 for a 20-year-old is worth $10, I believe, for a 35-year-old. And that's what I'm trying to do right now. And that's what this channel is all going to be about, is it's going to be about learning. It's going to be about me failing. It's going to be about maybe me succeeding if I get lucky. But point being is that start thinking long term. Don't be greedy with your winnings. If something is going a certain way, it doesn't mean that it's going to go that way forever. So maybe don't go out for dinner every night. Maybe don't buy a pair of Gucci shoes or a Gucci ring. Maybe if you're really lucky, don't buy that car that you want to buy. Maybe put it into something that 10 years from now, when you're 30, when you're 40, when you're 50, it's going to actually have turned into something that provides a more comfortable life. Your dollar today is worth $20 over there. So whenever you buy something for $100, you're actually spending $2,000 on it. So why not be smart with your money and not be greedy and actually come up with a plan that secures your financial future rather than just speculating like me. I was speculating and then I lost it and I was still speculating. But if I wasn't greedy, I would have taken it out at 20K, which was halfway up. And I would have kicked myself when I got to 47. But then when it dropped back down to 10, I know that I would have made a 400 or maybe 500% return. And that's the thing. And that's what you need to identify, because if you don't identify those sort of markers for yourself, you're just going to keep on going because you believe that it's just going to keep on going. So yeah, that's today's video. If you enjoyed the story, please click subscribe and like below. Let me know, do you think that cryptocurrency is going to come back? I've heard a lot of things and I've seen the graphs and it looks like Bitcoin's kind of recovering a little bit. I think it's at like 14,000 Australian, which is almost a whole third back to where it was back in the day. So what do you think? What is your strategy? Do you think that cryptocurrency is going to come back? Let me know down below. Thanks so much. Bye.